So here we are, actually in front of Shitty Hall. Shitty Hall in Los Angeles. And, you know, it's, I don't know exactly how the phrase, you can't fight City Hall, got into the American lexicon, but it seems to me that it did emanate through popular culture and not literature. I mean, I can't recall ever having heard that phrase ascribed to someone. So I guess it came to us through, you know, the Flintstones and maybe the Honeymooners and other non-site-worthy popular culture sources. And it's on the Dragnet badge, right? Sure. Dun, 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 dun. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, or at least we would hope. And we'll have to change some of the names, or just omit them in this particular tale, because the names are so voluminous, and every time we drop names, we're just giving other sources for the opposing forces in this thing to contact and stir up, let's call it what it is, a conspiracy against me. Which is a way of introducing the fact that I've just gotten out of about an hour in detainment. In other words, you know, you've seen in this series, let's just say in this series of programs on Los Angeles, how everybody in fucking town thinks that it's just their God-given right to beat on me, try to perform strong-arm robbery on me, or in the case of that crazy bitch and that crazy, well, perhaps not so crazy bodyguard yesterday, to grab at me and shove me and knock me off balance while, you know, I'm gainfully employed pursuing Courtney Love's automobile. And, you know, if the reason for the fall, which resulted in this injury, yeah. If the reason for that, if the fall resulting in that injury, the reason for it is unclear to you, it's first the bodyguard, but then especially that crazy bitch with the crime scene tape all over her falling on yours truly, or grabbing at me like some sort of maniac, and in front of at least a half a dozen sheriff's deputies who are out there doing something, controlling traffic or something. You know, of course, when we were assaulted by the KABC camera guy on December 11th, and we went into, you know, make a criminal complaint, they said, oh, anything that happens outside these doors, that's not our territory. We're just inside the courthouse. Everything else outside this door off our property is Beverly Hills PD. But I can bet that Beverly Hills PD did not want any kind of exposure nationally in Seattle or anywhere else as the agency that comes out and stops traffic for 5 or 10 minutes so that Courtney Love can play out her little psychodrama drugs trial any way that she chooses. Which is, you know, after she was known to have left the courtroom, there's a very short trip down the elevator, and then she's in the garage, and they still kept us waiting about 15 minutes out there. And I bet that's Courtney Love trying to cook up some police tactic to use against us. Because, you know, that's just the way her mind works. I'm a wealthy person. I've got a house, possibly heavily leveraged, here in Beverly Hills. You're goddamn right those cops should go out and do whatever I want them to do. And, you know, of course the cops don't always see it that way, do they? You know, as disgusting as their conduct often is, you know, there are some personnel within these government agencies that think, well, it might be a bad idea for us to just get up on our hind legs and do whatever a resident of Beverly Hills, or in this particular case, let's just emphasize the accused felon, to get up on our hind legs and do whatever the accused felon wants us to do. That might be a bad idea. That might send people the wrong message. Like Courtney Love winking at the judge yesterday, you know? I would have given her 24 hours for contempt, you know? I mean, she did that cat thing in court, and it was, I think I saw in the transcript, Keith Olbermann on MSN ran this in a little news clip segment on MSN, on national cable, and said, and of course they had Courtney doing the clause thing, and then he said, and at the conclusion of the hearing, the judge ordered Courtney Love to be downed by a dart gun. Full stop. Oh no, wait, I just made that part up. So people found that, you know, thing that she did in court amusing, obviously, for, in a lot of ways, all the wrong reasons as far as her publicity campaign at this time goes. But, you know, usual courtroom decorum is that unless you're stark raving fucking mad and that's your only defense, you shouldn't do anything that in any way is threatening. Like you can't make a gesture like yeah, like you know, flipping off the judge. That you know, is the street language of threatening behavior, and with full justification, the judge can bang that gavel down and find you in contempt. And you know, I mean, customarily, I think the contempt charge is no more than 24 hours, at least on TV dramas. I don't know how that kind of contempt thing goes down here in Los Angeles, but you know, there are more serious degrees of contempt too. Obviously, flipping off the judge would be bad news, and making a sort of gun-type gesture, let's say, that would be even worse. You know, as far as being threatening to the bench or any person in the courtroom, you know. And yet, you know, she did this jungle cat thing, like she's irrationally angry about something. Oh, probation, of course. She pretended, I mean, it was widely reported that she didn't understand the meaning of the word probation, but it was obvious that she meant something else, which is probation. That gets me up on my claws with my back arched like an angry jungle cat when I hear the word probation. I don't want to go down as some sort of convicted felon who was let off on a probationary period. because she doesn't want to plead guilty. She wants a trial, and that was her way of advertising. One effect of it was that this helped her to advertise to the media that she was definitely down for a full trial. She would enjoy doing that. And so they did show up again yesterday. I know I'm didn't have a particular structure in mind in getting into this, but I'm just sort of going full speed ahead anyway. And that is because it's a long and tortuous path that I'm running here. And didn't I say, 6 weeks ago, standing in front of the Temple of Justice, that they're going to be ready for us with some bullshit strategy. And the bullshit strategy would be a combination of violence and the police approving of the violence, and then, violence for its own sake, which they know really doesn't work with me. But, that bodyguard, the only reason I said he was not a completely nuts bodyguard is, if he had been a real moron, obviously he was pretty moronic. I have no idea where that guy came from. Again, there were, about 15 media people, plus those fans standing around in a little gaggle, and onlookers, before Courtney Love's black Benz rolled up that ramp. And I was looking around at everybody on a continuous basis, and believe me, that guy came out of nowhere. That bodyguard type guy that was grabbing at me in the now famous footage, So, he wasn't completely nuts, because he was thinking, well, I can't really tackle this guy or, manually restrain him, because, to do so would be doing so in front of half a dozen or so sheriff's deputies. And, this guy's probably being paid $20 an hour. There's no reason he wants to pick up some assault charge on his record when he's completely not getting paid on that scale. But the crazy bitch therapist, so-called, or the person who alleged herself to be a therapist, or just about to get her certification or her degree or whatever nonsense she came up with, she was the one that kept clawing at me at the very end, after the bodyguard guy actually gets into the moving vehicle like some kind of freaking TJ Hooker stunt. I mean, I couldn't even believe that when I saw it, the guy was jumping into the moving van, like the moving car, like that mysterious black trench-coated character in the famous Willis photo, getting into Mary Farrell's station wagon in Dealey Plaza moments after the shots were fired. I mean, it's the same posture, sticking one foot in as the car is, at a very temporary stop, or rolling, at, say, less than 5 miles an hour. So we dropped in that JFK reference because we do have about 50 hours of material that we shot in Dallas on the 40th anniversary. And that comprised our first 2 editions of KCWM on JFK 40, which were aired at the end of last season, which is the 2-part interview with Bar McClellan, which it's still, you probably didn't pick up on this in the show, but it still is pretty wild that, like, almost every day, if you watch the news, what was it yesterday? I guess it was the president, covering his bases on saying that he really did believe there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He wasn't lying about that. So almost every day there are official White House announcements from Scott McClellan. And, well, the joke, which you probably didn't get because it wasn't overly obvious in the material that was shown in the two-part Barr McClellan thing, is the guy who wrote the great conspiracy theory book of 2004, Blood, Money, and Power, How LBJ Killed JFK. Now, of course, many of our critics, if we could even call them that, many of our adversaries out there are listening to this part of the program and they're saying, oh, great, great, great. He's talking about the John Kennedy assassination. This is great. He's showing himself to be the conspiracy theorist that he really is, you know. But what I'm talking about is a guy wrote a really astonishing book on the subject of the JFK murder, and that guy is Barr McClellan, father of Scott McClellan, who is the principal press secretary for that's right, George W. Bush. And on top of that is his brother, Barr McClellan's other son, is director of the FDA, commissioner of the FDA, the #1 spot at the FDA. So it's really wild that this guy who is such a conspiracy theorist, I mean, he's really, his book would have to be the earth-shaking conspiracy theory tome of this year, 2004, for certain. And, you know, he's a guy who's been partway into the Democratic Party in the past, and now says he's leaning a little bit more toward the Republicans for the obvious reason. His kids are running W's bloody government for him. Or, yeah, they have key roles, obviously. So that's a way of saying that, as Barr McClellan said in the radio interview he was doing that we taped, you know, he was saying, and you might not have gotten this from just watching my video, is that there are some things, even in the world of the JFK assassination, that are coincidences and only coincidences. And it's important that, you know, on some cosmic scale, maybe there are no such thing as coincidences. However, you know, if you're discussing criminal justice matters and politics, you should never use that slogan that there are no such things as coincidences, because there sort of are. I mean, I can't piece together any series of motivations that would say that it's good for George W. Bush, the Texan, the guy who wants to be synonymous with Texas, to be secretly pulling strings to put out this book wherein obviously one Democrat kills another Democrat, but that's really beside the point. For the most part, people are going to associate the corruption in Texas with Texas-style corruption, not Democratic Party-style corruption, because it's a fairly unusual, if not unique, sort of maneuver in the Democratic Party to kill your boss and take his job. There's probably someone who's done that before, but nothing comes to mind. And on the other hand, in Texas, you know, just to buy and read Mr. McClellan's book, there's just a whole lot of murder for hire going on down there in the Lone Star State. I mean, it's just a historical reality. And now, one thing I'm always on guard about here in LA is, here I am sitting on the second step of City Hall, and I could get whacked right here. And, you know, the LA Times, which is, right kitty corner across the street, who knows, they might run that as a, you know, page 19 item. When I was here in 2003, I picked up a newspaper, and I was, you know, driving on the freeways a lot, which is scary enough, and I saw like some little 3-inch item about a guy on one of the heavily trafficked freeways who got shot by a sniper. I mean, it was like the report was that the police had already determined that this wasn't a gang thing, it wasn't car to car, it wasn't road rage. The guy got killed by a sniper And, the Times wanted to lessen public panic by playing it down. And then, of course, I was the victim of sniper fire myself on the trip home with a BB gun, possibly by one R.A. Wrench, which is not a whole thing I want to go into right now. But I did make an official complaint. I don't know that I've discussed this in depth previously, and I won't go into too much depth here now, but I did make a substantial series of complaints to the Washington State Patrol about that incident. And they gave me a bunch of bullshit on the phone, never responded to my mail, and obviously knew who I was and what the deal was, and knew that they weren't going to get involved in the Kurt Cobain thing, even if it had to do with fulfilling their oath. He that violates his oath profanes the divinity of faith itself, said Cicero. Or as they say in Chicago, Cicero. That is a pretty good theme for this monologue, which is profaning everything and anything by not following your oath, like all of these law enforcement officials. Or once again, we have to remind people that according to one document published by the Seattle city government, you might as well call it low enforcement, because there's going to be very little enforcement indeed when it comes to serious crimes. That's the kind of thing that's going to have to be investigated, let's say almost exclusively by those who are called conspiracy theorists, because the police don't want to do elaborate homicide investigations. Not if they don't have to. It's better just to get paid for standing around acting tough and joining the culture of American fascism. And I didn't call anyone a fascist to his face in the last hour or so, but I damn well felt like it during my hour of detainment. And I was totally exposed to a hell of a lot of LA police culture style fascism, which is just these guys. The last thing the Sarge said to me as I was being let go, I said, let me just make one point, because they weren't letting me say anything, but it was obvious that they were frustrated enough that they were going to let me go. Said, let me make one point, and this guy says, no, I'm going to tell you nothing, nada, not one thing, not one word, and I'm telling you that point blank. Like, point blank? What are you saying? If I open my mouth, you're going to shoot me? And this is not, it may sound like just a joke, but these guys are standing around for an hour like this. I'm sitting on this couch in this little back room, and they're all, Chris, they're all pumped up on roids. It's really ridiculous. Most of them are pumped up on roids. Like, say about 50%. And, these guys are standing around flexing their muscles and, acting like the biggest a-holes that they can manage to be. Welcome to Los Angeles. None of which surprised me, but still, it's completely ridiculous, because it's like some of these guys are like borderline retards, and the guys that have like the 89 IQs, boy, they strut around like, I'm going to be chief of police someday, or whatever they call this sheriff. I'm going to make assistant sheriff. I'm going to make assistant director sheriff, because I'm the smart guy here. Principally, we've got his name written down, and we're not going to go into his 3-letter name starting with GA, but this guy only held the rank of officer as far as I could tell, but everyone was acquiescing to his issues from 8 a.m. on. And, let me remind you that it's now almost noon. So, I had this like 3-hour adventure in there, and believe me, it was very premeditated. And you know that when you walk in the building and they're just all like on this, crystal meth trip. They're all so fucking excited that the guy from TV showed up, and, we got this little plot to, kick his ass today. And I should point out, for those of you who aren't realizing this, that I was on TV once again in a big freaking way yesterday. And maybe today. I didn't catch myself on the AM news. I mean, I tried, and the story seems to have quieted down, but I got like 3 minutes and 5 seconds on KABC yesterday, which is a follow-up to like a 2-minute thing that they did on KABC on December 11th, right? For those of you who are following our story that closely. And, well, obviously you're going to have to see it, but it's... a lot of it hinged on this conspiracy theory thing. It's a very similar setup. I could have hung around and gotten the Sony Watchman tube shot on site there, but for reasons I won't get into, I just thought maybe this time I won't repeat myself. Plus, also, I thought I had a fairly good chance of getting in front of a TV, and I did manage to, but the reception wasn't perfect, so it's an okay tube shot, in color. And anyway, so it's our old acquaintance Giovanna Lara doing her live shot in front of the Beverly Hills Municipal Court sign, and once again saying, as she did on December 11th, and as others said, was the real drama was not inside the court today. It was just a motion for a continuance. Oh, by the way, I think I got off on a tangent, if you can believe such a thing, in discussing Courtney's decorum. But yesterday she did, the local Fox thing did show her winking at the judge. Like she was agreeing to something and she's like, oh, yeah. And it was like a well-rehearsed thing, Remind yourself that considers herself an actress. And so it was like one of these gestures that she really worked on, and totally pregnant with meaning, I mean, like you could just read that gesture like, the back of a paperback novel and understand the plot therein, which is she's like, oh, sure, Judge, like I'm a hip bourgeois chick, I'm money people, and you are too, babe. Yeah, you got to do this bullshit and show up to work, and I got to do my bullshit. But hey, we know this is just all a bunch of bullshit, The whole law cracking down on the individual. That's all shit for the poor fuckers, not the cool money people like you and me, Judge. That's right. So the Fox affiliate did run that, and but the KABC was the most amazing thing, which is they just made it another freaking installment of the Richard Lee soap opera. As it was even introduced, that the drama once again was outside the courtroom, not inside the courtroom, and then and I was called variously, a would-be reporter, as somebody who calls himself a journalist, and at one point I think I was called Seattle journalist or something like that. But then when they cut to, and then Giovanna says, you judge for yourself. He calls himself a journalist. You judge for yourself. And then they cut to the bit with CLC and me in the car and the whole press gang. And she says that self-proclaimed documentarian, and then there's like a stammer, like you can't hear whether she's saying or conspiracy theorist or it's just documentarian, conspiracy theorist. it's real tricky, but basically, I think twice in the piece I was referred to as a conspiracy theorist. And she's saying this as that wacky nut job with the crime scene tape on. She's got her hands getting inside the vehicle, which I definitely never did. I never touched the vehicle or put my hands in it, or stuck the camera in it. The camera was, it was where the roll-up window would be approximately, but I had no interest in sticking my camera inside the confines of the cabin, Anyway, but so Giovanna rolls twice. She rolls the segment of tape as the bodyguard is grabbing at me, and that crazy crime scene chick is grabbing at me, and the car speeds off and I fall. All of which doesn't make me look so great, but then, I was allowed my rejoinder, which is they did show, like 15 seconds of me strutting back after the deputy says, on the sidewalk. He was like the old guy that was like supervising. He was at one point identified as a sergeant, so I guess that's true. So I get back up on the sidewalk and I'm saying, what did I say? I said, the celebrity justice guy was berating me, which really took me by surprise. But he was berating me and saying, I'll do all I can to keep you out of these courts or whatever, which is an absurd thing. The celebrity justice program is generally, 100% fanatically pro-First Amendment for themselves. I mean, they cover the entertainment industry exclusively, and I haven't really noticed them backing off full fanatical support of the First Amendment, which is what everyone in the entertainment industry has anyway. But this guy, who's obviously someone who's been affiliated with them for a long time, from what I understand, he spouts off with this big soliloquy about how, he's going to personally stop me from covering these court hearings himself or whatever, which is insane. And I was very surprised that this guy broke into that, but then it gave me an opportunity for my rejoinder, which is, what you don't want. And I just basically shut him up by shouting him down even before I got onto the sidewalk. What you don't want is you don't want a real reporter coming around asking real questions. Then the guy tells me to get on the sidewalk. So that I do my little soliloquy, only mine was on the news, baby. And I said, I am a real reporter. I am asking real questions. And what does Courtney Love do? She drives away like a maniac. I mean, is that what you just saw? Is that illegal driving in Beverly Hills? I don't think so. Which all made me look pretty suave, and it's obviously not the substance of what I'm doing here is critiquing traffic enforcement for celebrities, but who could argue with that? Nobody else gets to drive that way. And the idea that those deputies are out there in the street, I don't know, it does bring to mind ideas that she had some success in getting the law enforcement to do at least part of her bidding, Because I think what she really wanted to do, really wanted to do, if you look at the tape over and over again, she wanted to first of all get me in front of the window and then not answer my question, pull up about 15 feet out into the street, and then hope that I would somehow be beaten down or restrained by somebody, like either her bodyguard whose loyalty she overestimated, or these other camera people who obviously I've described as thuggish. But then none of them ran after her, only I ran after her, to both of our surprise. Only me, and then following hard upon, of course, was that crazy bitch in the crime scene tape, and the bodyguard guy, who obviously didn't really have his heart into stopping me, and good for him, because it would have been a flippin' federal case if he had. And then there's a little clip of me showing the the Gelb finger pointing to the question, did Courtney Love offer you $50,000 to kill Kurt Cobain? So, I'm obviously not covering the whole 3-minute segment. 3 minutes on the news covers a lot more material than that. I mean, they had her walking in court and, But the whole emphasis of the piece was Richard Lee is at it again, which, a one-shot on the 4 o'clock news, even in LA, on KABC doesn't turn you into a local item of interest, but twice within 6 weeks, For whatever reason, KABC is obviously promoting this as the Courtney and Dick show, and I'm not sure why. Believe me, I have thought about that. Even on the first day, a number of theories come to mind, and it could be just pure coincidence. I mean, the pure coincidence theory is just that I'm there, I'm doing things, I'm getting covered, and they've given this reporter a lot of leeway, let's call it, to cover the story any way she wants, and she knows that the most interesting aspect of the tale is not Courtney and her stupid bullshit, it's me and my thing. And they're covering it that way just because it is the most interesting way to cover it. And then there are other theories that come to mind, like this is sort of prep work for me to be, face-to-face with Barbara Walters. Not really that, but for them to go out and shoot the footage and then put all the emphasis in their stories on me, it does kind of raise the possibility that someone further up the line at ABC has an interest in focusing on me for the 10th anniversary or whatever. Although, let me point out a reminder about Bar McClellan and how he got bumped from Good Morning America. Not really the prestige venue on ABC, but they bumped Bar McClellan, as he explained to us, and he attributes that to pressure from Jack Valenti, LBJ's old buddy, who's of course for decades been the mouthpiece for the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association. So, but still, they got to do something for the Cobain anniversary, and who knows, maybe it'll be me. And actually, I did get contacted by an organization that seems to have affiliations with ABC. I'm not even going to mention the name of it now for fear of effing it up, but we'll let that rest at that. And then, of course, the other thing is there's even a sort of corporate rivalry thing that could be playing into this, which is that, ABC, the Disney network, would like to point out for the United States of America that, the MCA Universal ghost really isn't completely dead. And, of course, that entity was very chummy with MTV, rather. And, so Courtney Love is the ugliest of developments that's ever occurred at the MTV. Although they would never admit that. They still promote her as a likable, comedic figure. Someone who it's fun to laugh at. And, oh, by the way, they've got all kinds of peace, love, and empathy for her. So let's not make the jokes too harsh. Although I did see a segment that was, it was MTV or VH1, which is the same company, of course, under Paramount, and recently, and they had Jenna Jameson, who I'm not familiar with the lady's work, but she's the most successful porn star, so let's assume that she's done just about everything, commenting about Courtney's nude layout in Cube magazine, which included the unforgettable quote, "wax my anus!" exclamation point. They actually have a film clip of Jenna Jameson talking about how disgusted she was to see that piece of pop culture material coming from Courtney Love. And so I would say there's a number of tangents here that I'm rolling out on, but the most important one is that we've gotten huge exposure, today, rather yesterday especially, and I don't know what, I would not expect Access Hollywood to cover me again, but I'm not that familiar with the format of the show. They probably do have a little snippets thing, and there were other court hearings Like Martha Stewart is basically very much a show business thing, and her trial started yesterday, and it appears not to be entirely coincidental that this was set on January 27th. I was wondering what that date meant when they picked that date for her to delay this and make another go at it, and all while knowing that I might show up again. And it turns out that January 27th is the day that the Oscar nominations are announced, very early in the morning. And so that dominates the coverage for Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood. In fact, I was speaking to someone at Entertainment Tonight only a couple of days ago, as it happens, and he said, oh yeah, not half the show, the whole show. And then they do make a huge deal over running down all the actors in Los Angeles who got nominated and getting them to give the sound bites about what it was to wake up to the news and all that. So, but even still, we got coverage locally, and I just don't know whether there was any national business on this at all yet, because I just haven't had the time to look into it. But obviously, anybody who's anybody in LA who's concerned with this scene knows all about it by now, including, of course, the coppers. And so it was the coppers that were laying in wait for me at 8 o'clock in the morning, And they were just as obnoxious and just as well briefed on who to harass and why to harass him when I came in on December 12th. Which is also for a hearing that Courtney Love didn't show up to. But up until shortly after 10 o'clock this morning, I was being told by the PIO office that, oh, you're approved for pool and there's no problem at all, and if some of those deputies are giving you a hard time, don't worry about that. And they were really giving me a hard time, and the guy told me at the PIO office, I just spoke to the judge within the last hour and there's no problem, you're approved for the pool and all that. And I should explain that I got zero sleep last night. After the local news was over around 6:30 or so, I crashed for about 2 hours, and then woke up at like 8:30, and as it turns out, could not get back to sleep, up until now, right here now. And that's just because of the flight thing and sleep schedules, and I guess it's just the simple phrase for it is jet lag, plus the big adrenaline rush and all of the physical exertion yesterday, and so anyway, zero sleep is what I'm functioning on here, and that does sometimes negatively impact the monologues a little bit, but I've been going for about 25 minutes, and I think I'm still going strong here. And so, like I concluded the last monologue, I knew that I'd be up for some Major League LA bullshit, and these guys, as you can see in the tape that I shot with the other camera persons there yesterday, they had a pretty smirky attitude, and just to reiterate what you've seen already, KABC, rather than sending out someone a little bit more mild-mannered, they send out some guy. The guy they replaced with the 200-pound gorilla is like a 300-pound gorilla, and he's just as almost as obnoxious as the other guy. Oh, that's my other little theory on why ABC is giving me this major play, is because they're terrified that I'll file a lawsuit based on the police report, which I only obtained yesterday, which does explain, the witnesses to my assault and all that, and how it is the fault of the KABC camera person. I mean, it looks pretty strongly in my favor. And, excuse me, from the assault that occurred on December 11th, out there in the presumably usually more civilized environs of Beverly Hills. So, Anyway, the cops gave me a big, long bullshit thing about ID and all that today, and I'm not even going to get into the details. I guess that's the editorial decision that I'm making at this point, is that I'll probably process some of this information and lay it all out for you in a week or two in a subsequent monologue, but I guess the teaser is tune in for the next long monologue and you'll see what I'm talking about, being detained by all these crazy cops. And what they did was they've been investigating me, is what they've been doing, even though none of these people is a detective and none of them is authorized to do any kind of crazy ass investigation for any reason whatsoever. But they got on the phone with the Seattle cops and they found out that I'm not a journalist, I'm a conspiracy theorist. And I was sitting in that little holding area where I was being detained. I mean, I asked like 3 or 4 times, am I being arrested? Am I under arrest? And the answer always came back, you're being detained while we run your license. And the reason that they felt authorized to run my license is based on these conversations they had with the Seattle police, that I'm a conspiracy theorist, not a journalist, and and this is really the amazing part. As if that's not amazing enough, that these coppers get on the long distance lines, you know, with each other and gossip about people and say, oh well, you know, fuck him, yeah. We've been looking to get in a boot in for years on that guy. Go ahead, kick away. Which, you know, I mean, it's just so Soviet style that you probably don't realize that goes on, but, you know, a government contract for long distance is really cheap. I mean, they're probably paying less than a penny a minute, right? And I'll bet you a hell of a lot more long distance powwowing goes on than most people realize. I've certainly had the feeling in this case of being long distance powwowed by law enforcement officials previously. And in this case today, they come up with this false claim. This Officer G.A. plus a third character, he says, we need to see your license because you misidentified yourself when you came in here. And I said, misidentified myself? And he said, yeah, what was the name you used? What did you claim that your name was when you walked in here? And I said, when I walked in here, I had the ID around my neck. I said, how could I claim to be anything other than the name which is on the ID? And they were totally not fazed by this. No, you gave me another name, and that's the name that you claimed was yours, and that's not the name that I'm seeing on this ID. And so they ran the search on me based on this false assertion. I mean, a total cold fucking lie by this officer and Sergeant, I gotta use his name, Sergeant Blank or Blanks, who was standing right next to him approvingly. You know, so the idea that this is just a total premeditated lie so that they could hopefully find out that I had, you know, some parking tickets or something that they could hold me on. I mean, that was their scheme, you know. And of course, I mean, it's certainly possible that the Seattle police could issue some bullshit warrant on you without your knowing it. I mean, I did have that experience once, but fortunately not now. Otherwise, I'd be in the, you know, LA Correctional Center, right? For God knows who knows how long. That is a legendary jail for locking people up and losing them for months at a time, you know. So, I mean, all major jails are like that, but from what I've heard, LA has a particularly bad reputation in that regard. So they were looking to do that kind of fucking Stalinist shit on me today, you know? I mean, to go full bore Stalin, the Seattle police would actually contrive a warrant, and then I'd be abducted and held within the bowels of the criminal justice system forever. And let's just thank our, lucky ass hairs that America isn't quite that bad yet. I mean, it hasn't been for me, right? They don't quite think they can get away with that as a matter of course, so it didn't happen to me, but it damn near did. I'm only telling you a part of the story, and I've got plenty to fill a show based on this alone and clips of the Courtney thing, and I hope that I'm being suitably entertaining in relating the facts of the harrowing experience here in law in these last 30 minutes or so. But the theme really has to be, hey, I did what I said I would do. I followed my oath. I did not violate my oath. I said I was coming back for more. I came back for more. And I also predicted that all these fascists and conspirators, let's call them what they are, would have their own plan about how to stick it to me. And certainly it's been stuck to me pretty substantially today, as usual, out by a narrow margin, escaped by the narrow margin of the width of a piece of high 8 videotape, and but escape I did, and now I get to have the modern pleasure of just jetting home in a couple of hours. So yeah, it's better just to wind down at this point, even though I had many other interesting observations that are just right there at the back of my throat that I'd like to continue to spew, but this has probably reached its practical limit as far as being a companion monologue to a montage of the LA bullshit clips, and I do regret not getting the tube shot at the court yesterday. I should have stuck around for that, because that whole KABC thing was so freaking about me. And I did explain the fourth possibility, that KABC is giving me press because they're concerned about me crushing them with a lawsuit. I mean, I just can't comprehend whether this thing is all just that cheap shit or there's something else going on. But let's be optimistic and hope there's something else going on, like, there's going to be a major profile piece on me soon. Not on KABC, but on some other organization. And KABC is at least smart enough to see that coming down the pike. These other news stations in LA, it's nothing conspiratorial that they're not covering me with any degree of depth. I think the ABC affiliate wants to see itself as a cut above, so they let people like Giovanna, turn loose a little bit with shaping a story, and, rather than doing the obvious thing, do the journalism school thing and look for that little story off to the side of the spotlights where the real interest may be. And in effect, of course, by making it an interesting story, they've created a little mini celebrity. Although the extent to which anybody's watching the news, actually they did basically rerun the whole thing at 11, just like they ran almost the whole thing at 11, just like they almost ran the whole thing at 11 on December 11th. And I gotta believe that the 11 o'clock news in LA gets hundreds of thousands of people tuning in. So, yeah, I'm a star. I can't deny it. And I'm a real reporter asking real questions. I mean, it seems like such an absurd thing to have to claim because, you know, in every other avenue of industry, the First Amendment is absolute, 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 and especially in this here town, which is built on, I mean, you know, if John Ashcroft had his way, you know, he'd be putting little white balloons like they put over Courtney Love's fingers over, you know, Nicole Kidman's boobies. I mean, it's well known that those are his opinions, that he believes that the obscenity laws are not being correctly enforced. And, you know, if he was king instead of merely attorney general, or if he was attorney general under a much more conservative / fascist environment, he wouldn't mind putting people out of business who are in the business of publishing that salacious material, which constitutes probably at least 50% of all of the titles released, you know, out of Hollywood. So in every other respect, everybody is an absolute gung-ho fanatic for the First Amendment. But when a guy comes around and spoils the celebrity shot, then that's not the First Amendment, mister. That's messing with our business. And we want to kick your ass and humiliate you in any way we can. Although, as much hostility as I have at these KABC people, especially for that assault, again, to underline the really vicious assault that occurred on December 11th, I gotta say, with the exception of that conspiracy theory thing, which obviously I hate, it was still pretty satisfying to see my drama playing out.